saying for a while that I'm going to start reviewing Black Six, and now I am finally ready to do just that. If you are new here, welcome to my channel, Beautifully Nerding. If you are returning, thank you for coming back again. I am your Auntie Bri, and today we are going to be talking about 1992's Juice. I have actually watched this movie for the very first time, I want to say a month ago, and I was like, yep, once is enough. But then I hadn't decided that I wanted to make this channel yet, so I had to watch it again to try to take some notes so that I could talk about it. So that meant that I had to watch the movie again, or at least try to, because the way that my anxiety is set up, like, secondhand embarrassment gets really, really real for me. Also, the hair is coming off way more fire hydrant than it does in real life. Like, when I say it's a nice, like, subtle redhead, like a nice, it looks really good in person, but I feel like on camera it is giving a distractingly fire hydrant, fire truck. Like, it's giving red on screen. And I just want y'all to know that it's not this red in real life. So I watched Juice because I have not seen a lot of, like, classic black movies, and everyone and their mama judges me for that. And that's not really my fault. When a lot of these movies came out, I either was not born or I was too young to be watching them. And as I got older, I just didn't care. So then I got to school and everybody was like quoting stuff. I had no idea what it came from, but I felt like I had heard enough of the quotes and, like, was able to ask the right people the right questions and was able to be enough in the know to where I could keep up in conversations. But then it still just got to a point to where it was like, how have you not seen these movies? And it's just like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and start watching them. And I wanted to be able to watch the movie and kind of think about it through a 2023 lens, as well as enjoying it for the movie that it is. So I feel like I'm able to well enough think of the movie in the time frame that it was made, but then also be able to say, like, how do I feel this movie stands up as it has grown over time. So, Juice. We open up with a very 90s opening credit scene. So we're getting everybody's names. We're getting, like, here's some B-roll of New York, and here's some vinyls. So the actual movie starts. And I will say that I didn't look up how old anybody was when the movie was made. Like, I could have done that extra research. I don't know. But I will say none of them looked high school age. And I will say that, like, even now, a lot of actors are older than the characters that they are portraying. But I feel like for sure with, like, high school age, they get people who are knocking on 30. And it's just like, I get these people look young. They don't look like children. And, like, I don't know exactly how old they're supposed to be. We just know that, like, they're supposed to be in school and they're not. So we open up with each of our characters, like, waking up, getting ready for the day. I was like, oh, like, have a good day at school, have a good day at school. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. No one's going to school. So they meet up with they're getting ready to go and meet up with each other. Everyone is, like, doing their own paths or whatnot. Q meets up with Raheem, and we get some exposition about how he has a child and, like, he's not with the mom anymore. But he's like, I mean, if we could get back together, I help take care of the kid. And it's just like, why are you adding stipulations and taking care of your child? Like, you only want access to this person. Like, you don't actually want them. And I was like, sorry, y'all, the hair, like, I'm used to having it, like, in my face, and I'm realizing that, like, I need to actually have my eyes visible. Also, shout out to ADHD, because I feel like we're just gonna go on tangents. We're just gonna see what happens. Usually I edit all this out, but I just feel like we're gonna let it vibe. So yeah, so Q meets up with Raheem. We see his baby mom. We see the baby, all the good stuff. Baby mom ain't falling for it. She's like, you got to go somewhere because having this baby don't make you no real man. I need a real man to take care of this child. We see Bishop is walking, and he's like passing a corner store, and he gets hemmed up by a group of folks who were like, oh, so I heard that you said that you could beat my ass. And Pac is like, cause I can. And so they kind of like, you know, put him up on the wall. It was like, oh, so you talking real cash shit, da 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 da. And I keep trying to say Pac. Bishop looks over and sees that his friends are coming his way, so he gets real spicy and is like, oh, like, I would have messed with your mom, but the line was too long. Like, the first time I heard that, I just thought that was so funny. like bro, like, that's, I love a good yo mama joke. Like, the gang of friends, like, you know, start ready to like mollywop oh boy, but Q and Raheem jump in and it's like, hey bruh, chill. And the dude is like, no, you need to tell your friend to chill, because he keep talking all this mess, and we done heard about his daddy, and it's not even like a good use of our time to beat him up, because he already, and it's like a whole bunch of stuff. Like, it's very exposition while trying to not be exposition, but it's like, I see what's happening. Thank you for the backstory. But anyway, they get out of that situation. They go meet up with Steel, who is our last of the four. They go meet up with him, and then they head to the arcade, which is where I suppose they spend a lot of their time kind of like, you know, doing their own respective hustles to make money. Because I'm assuming that since they're supposed to be in school, they're not able to get actual jobs, so they have to do what they can to make money, which is scamming. Quincy is selling mixtapes. I guess Raheem is scamming on the pool table, and then Steel is finessing people out of money on the arcade machine. I don't remember exactly what Bishop was doing, but he was doing, they're all in the arcade, like, finessing folks. Also, Sam Jack was there. So when I first watched it, I didn't look it up. All I knew was that Pac and Q, which I feel like I keep calling him Quincy, because Quincy is the character's name in Love and Basketball. And that was something I grew up watching, was Love and Basketball. And that's Quincy is his name in that movie. I don't actually know if his name is Quincy in this movie, but it's Q. I didn't look up who all was in it, so I was very surprised when I saw Sam Jackson. I was so excited. And I will say that this is the most Sam Jackson I've seen Sam Jackson be, because most Sam Jackson that I see recently has just been Nick Fury, and he's giving very much grandpa who never gave a damn, which I love, but it's like, let me see you before you was grandpa. So that was very refreshing for me. I felt like Sam Jack got to be very much more Sam Jack. Everybody's in the arcade having a good time, and then, you know, we hear the police pull up, and Sam Jack is like, they here. And everybody gets to running because, you know, obviously they're supposed to be in school. If they get caught, the police are going to take them back to school. So everybody goes running, except for Steel, who I guess was so far into the game that he didn't hear Sam Jack say they coming. He didn't hear everybody, not even his friends, everybody in the arcade leave. He also didn't hear his friends screaming his name to leave. And then he also didn't feel when the police officer was standing right behind him and was like, hey, bro, let's go. Because, like, what you gonna do? Like, he's right there. Like, you can't run nowhere. I don't know where Raheem went. He just, light skin vanished out of nowhere. And then Q and Bishop are running. They go up to a rooftop. They run and jump across to another rooftop, which gets them away from the police, and they're good. Everybody meets back up at the school to wait for Steel to sneak out. He comes out. They run away from the, I guess, the school security person, whatever, and they go on about their day. So they're walking through the streets of New York trying to figure out what they want to do. And they run across a poster for a DJ competition. And Q is like, oh snap, like this is it, I'm finna do this. And Bishop is like, you ain't finna do nothing. Like you ain't, it's whatever. And Q is like, you all supposed to be my boy, y'all supposed to support me, da 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 da. So they like, all right, cool. So they go to the record store to get some new records for him to like practice with and like, you know, make new like songs and mixes and all that good stuff. But of course, they have no money. So they have to finesse it. Like they kind of go in batches, because you can't just all walk in. That looks suspicious. So they kind of go in separately. You know, Bishop starts looking at some records. Raheem starts looking at some records. Steele walks in with the newspaper. He starts looking at some records. And then Q comes in and goes directly to the lady working behind the counter. And it's like, hey, let me get the new whatever tape and your name and your number. So the whole time he's looking at her, she's like setting up on a ladder and she's like getting something off the wall. She comes down, turns around, and we see this big old gold tooth on her front tooth. And it's just the one, which is hilarious to me because my dad has like that same like gold tooth. And I've never understood like where did that come from? Like why was that a thing? I still don't understand why it's a thing, but it's peak 90s. So he turns around and sees her face and she's like, oh, you want my name and my number? And he's like, yeah. So while this is happening, the other guys are looking at albums and they're passing them to Steele to put in the newspaper. Now, what got me is that maybe newspapers were just small then, because even when he had like the first like one in like the first two, the newspaper should have been able to cover the records. Now, granted, when you got like 10, maybe it won't, but I feel like a newspaper is big enough when it's folded to cover some of them better. So they're passing him records. So they're like, you know, tucking the things out of like in there in the newspaper. And so Q gets her to write her name and her number down, and she's like, oh, does that mean you're gonna take me out? Like, when are we going out? And he's like, I have to let you know. And so the other guys start to leave the store, and she's like, hey, you have to pay for that. Like, let me see your newspaper, da da da. And so like once they realize they done got busted, they like take off running. And so Q is still there, and so the girl handed him the tape that he had asked for, and like he has like her, you know, name and phone number, whatever. And he's like backing away. Like once he realizes his friends is running out, he starts like backing away from the counter, like as she's trying to yell at them. And he's just like, "All right, sweetheart, I see you." She's just like, "Get a job, why don't you?" And I'm cracking up because I'm just like, bro, this is so funny. Like, so after they leave the record shop, they are trying to figure out what they're gonna do. Like, they're, you know, it's about noonish. They're getting hungry. Trying to figure out where to go next. They're trying to figure out where to go next, where they're gonna get something to eat. And they are passing by this bar on the corner, and Raheem tells Q to go in and get him some cigarettes. Now, honestly, like, smoking is a really bad habit, so you should probably stop. So he goes in, and I feel like this part kind of confused me because it looked like a jukebox, but I guess it was just a cigarette dispenser, because I thought that he was like trying to like play it cool and like put a song on the jukebox. It was gonna like, you know, kind of chill to not make it hot that he was doing too much. He probably wouldn't have done that because like the more time you spend in there, the more suspicious it is of like, why are you still here? So I'm guessing that was a cigarette dispenser. So he goes and buys the cigarettes. So he sees this guy that he recognizes. He goes over and speaks to old boy. And I will say that, like, you could tell from jump that something was about to happen because dude just seemed real shifty. He was kind of just like staring at the like rest of the people, but like in the corner, like just something just wasn't right. And Q goes and speaks to him and it's like, oh, like, you know, when did you make parole? Which already should tell you like, oh no, some dumb foolery is about to happen right now. So he's like, oh, you know, I just got out a couple of days ago. But hold that thought, because I'm finna rob this place. And he pulls out like a pump action and is like, everybody turn around, this is a robbery. Take off all your clothes. Whoa, wait a minute. Why? How did we get here? How did we jumped like way forward. After he starts screaming and like, you know, says it's a robbery, he turns to Q and is like, hey, you want a piece of this? And Q was like, nah, I'm straight. I will pass on that. Thank you for the offer though. And he slowly backs out of the bar and he goes back to his friends and he's like, hey yo, homeboy is in there right now sticking up the place. And Bishop is like, oh, say word, let's go in there. And Raheem is like, what you not finna do is that. And Bishop is like, nah, because you know how much money they got in there? We need to go be a part of it. We need to go get some money. Raheem is like, that crazy dude in there is about to go down for real. And my job as the leader of this group is to make sure that we don't go down as well. So you not finna go in there. And he kind of like pushes Bishop away and they start to walk off. And Bishop's kind of sitting there looking like, bro, what? Like, what you mean? So the gang goes to Steele's house to hang out and watch TV because they assume that like since he's the fat friend that they have food at the house. So they go over there. He cooks them this like abomination of eggs, bacon. It looked like turkey bacon. Of like eggs, bacon. He had like a 40 and there was like ketchup on the side of the. I don't know what he was. It looked terrible. Nobody ate it but him. They're watching movies or whatever. They're watching a western where I can't quite tell what happened because they kept like jumping back and forth from the friends to the TV, so like you never fully knew what was happening in the show. But like essentially folks was getting beat up and shot. And Bishop was way too into what was happening in the movie and was like super geeked, super excited. He was like, if that's how you gonna go out, you gotta go out in a blaze of glory. Which is foreshadowing for sure. And even the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, cool. That's what's gonna happen. Like I was like, oh, all right, cool. The TV changes from the movie that they're watching to the news. And they see that the guy who was at the bar where they just were was shot and killed by the police, but he's dead. And they're like, yo, like we were just down there. Like that's crazy how that happens. And Raheem and Bishop share a glance that's pretty much like, and see, that's why I didn't let you go in there because you was going to wind up dead on the news just like him. And Bishop is looking like, dang, that's crazy. That could have been me. And but like all of this is unsaid. They're just like looking at each other, which like shout out to their acting because I got the full conversation just from the glances. So shout out to y'all and the direction. Now I will say this is the part where my anxiety started to flare up because I know what happens and I like the movie was just a little deeper than I was expecting it to be. Again, haven't watched a lot of these old classic blaxploitation type movies. I don't know what to expect. I am a comedy, dramedy type of girl. I like to laugh. I like escapism. I don't like real life in my movies. It's a little too close to home. I get a little too anxious. It's too much. So as I'm watching it for the second time to take notes for this video, I started getting real anxious and I was like, okay, cool. So what do I remember from when I watched it the first time? So I will apologize because I'm pretty sure that I'm probably going to leave out some things, but it's the general gist of the movie. So after they're watching the news, Bishop goes on this whole rant about how he is tired of running, about how they run from the Hispanic dudes on the street, about how they run from the police, about how they run from the dude at the corner store who like threatens them anytime they are just hanging out there. And he feels like he just is running from everyone and everything in his life, and he's tired. And he's like, we have to, essentially his speech is about how like they have to have a higher social cachet, essentially, and that they have to have more juice so that they don't have to keep running from everybody in their lives. And essentially he's just saying like, you know, we have to take life into our own hands. We got to tell these folks that we mean business. Essentially he just wants to start roughing up some folks and being a little cuckoo bananas, because he's like, folks don't take us seriously, so we got to tell them that we mean business. And everyone is like, you're doing a whole lot, fam. And he's like, I'm not doing enough. And then him and Bishop and Q essentially come to blows, or like breaking vases and stuff in his house. They do end up making up, because I feel like guys can like have a whole argument and punch each other and be fine 5 minutes later. While Bishop was making points, you could tell that like he was giving Disney villain of like, you're not wrong in what you're saying, but the way that you're wanting to go about it is not good. Like let's reel it in. Let's reel it in a little bit, because you're saying some good things. You're saying good things, but it's not how we're gonna go about this. So okay. So now we're at the point where I stopped watching the movie for the second time, and here's what I just remembered. So when they leave Steele's house, I believe everyone goes their own separate ways, and Q is going to get ready for the tryouts for the DJ competition. So he gets his stuff together, he's practicing and whatnot, and then he goes to the auditions, and it's like a super long line for the auditions. We see, I want to say it was Flex Alexander, and Queen Latifah come out. So I guess like Flex was auditioning for it, and like Queen Latifah is the one who's like picking the people, and they have like some words exchanged, and he's just, you know, puffing his chest out thinking he's hot shit, and she's just like, you ain't nothing, get on somewhere. And then Q goes in, it's his turn to audition. Queen Latifah loves him. It's like, okay, cool, you in a competition, come at this time and do your set, whoop, whoop, all this good stuff. Bet. So Q is going on, like, you know, telling the boys about how he's gonna be in the competition, like how it's gonna be at this time, whoop, whoop, whoop. And they're like, wonderful, because we can use the DJ competition as a cover for this plan that we have hatched, because they were able to find a blicky, and they are going to use that to stick up the corner store so they can have more money to do things, because again, they're supposed to be in school, so they can't work, which means they have no money, but they're not in school, so they need money to do things. It's a whole cycle. So they're not gonna shoot anybody. They're just gonna like use it to, like, you know, make a point. Like, we're not gonna shoot nobody. We're just gonna have a gun on him. He'll take us seriously with this. We get our money, we get out. We can use the competition as our alibi. We go in there, we say what's up, you know, shake a few hands, make a couple hellos. We dip out. We go rob the place, and we come back. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay. So they go to the DJ competition. Q does an amazing job, because of course he does. Like, that's how the movie's gonna movie. Does such a great job. And, you know, he's like killing it on the little ones and twos, doing his thing. And then after his set, they all kind of, which I don't feel like they snuck out very well, because it was all four of them. Like, so it was the three of them like standing looking mad, like watching, because they were all trying to get in the mindset of, here's what we're going to do after this. Like, we're about to go rob a convenience store after this. So they all looking like mad. And so as soon as Q is done, they all leave. So it's like everybody is like watching the competition. It's still going. It's just these four dudes who everyone knows is always together. They all just leave at the exact same time. Like, y'all are literally walking in the opposite direction. Like, I just felt like that was a very, like, y'all tried to be under the radar, and it was just, that was a terrible play. They leave, they go to the corner store, and for some reason they let Bishop keep the gun. Like, the most mentally unstable person of the group was able to convince them to let him keep the gun, which, don't ever do that. Like, because honestly, y'all shouldn't have had it in the first place. Like, let's just keep it a bean. None of y'all should have had it in the first place. Like, y'all found it, y'all tried to, like, no. Because what was supposed to happen was that they were going to leave it where they had found it, but I think, like, Bishop went back and, like, took it anyway. So, like, he just been chilling with this thing. So they go to the store, they stand it up, you know, they all have their mask on or whatever. You know, they're one of them like goes behind the register and is like putting the money in the bag or whatnot. And Bishop is pointing the piece at the shopkeep, and out of nowhere he just shoots old boy. Like, it legitimately felt out of nowhere. And we're just like, what just happened? And from Bishop's perspective, he says that he moved. And that's why he shot him, because he thought that he was reaching for his own gun. So he shot him. Now, my first thought was like, you couldn't have shot him in the shoulder. You couldn't have, like, you just had to kill the man. But then at the same time, it's like, he probably never shot a gun before. But then at the same time, it's like, you ain't never shot a gun before, but you shot him in the head. Like, it was just so many things that were happening. So they go run into the alley or whatever, because they're like, oh, this one's supposed to happen. We'll whoop this, that, and the third. And so Raheem is like, Bishop, give me the gun. And Bishop is like, no, thank you. I'm gonna keep it. They tussle. We hear another shot. Raheem is down. And this is where, like, because the movie was already doing a lot once they started robbing the convenience store. Like, I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, oof, this is a lot. But as soon as someone in the friend group died, I was like, okay, this is more than I bargained for. This is too much. Two people have died in like 10 minutes. What's happening right now? And like, just trying to thinking about all of that the second time I was watching it, like, I could not put myself through that again. So I was just like, y'all gonna have to take what I can remember. So here we are. Raheem is dead in the alley, and since it is an alley, like, there are like houses, apartments. And so people hear the gunshots, and they're like, so they heard the first one from when they was at, at the corner store, and now they hear the one that's like outside their window, and they're like, hey, what's going on? Who's out there? Da, 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 da. So they have no choice but to leave Raheem there. And the part that disgusted me, because I already thought it was wild, but then it was just, was that Bishop came back to get the money off of Raheem's dead body. You just shot one of your best friends. You just shot one of your best friends, and you are still so like, well, we had a purpose of us coming to get this money, so I can't just leave the money. Q and Steele are like, this mofo, we already knew that he was crazy before this, and so now we already know that his mental is no longer there. It's no longer working. We have got to get away from this man. So they are trying to do as much as they can to distance themselves from this man. Like, they are trying to, like, they don't answer his phone calls. He comes to the door, they don't answer. Like, they are not trying to have nothing to do with him, because they're grieving their best friend. And also their best friend's murderer is in their face. So it's a lot going on. And then there is a funeral service for Raheem, held by his family. And of course, Q and Steele are there because that was their best friend. Like, it would be really odd for them not to be there. And Q is just like shocked and in awe. Put this back down. Q is just shocked and in awe because like there's nothing he can say because he knows exactly what happened, but he cannot say anything. And Bishop is acting like he don't know what he did. He's just like, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Whatever, whatever. And he was my brother to me. He was my best friend. We're gonna find who did this. Da da da. Just waxing poetic, like he did not kill this man. And I'm just watching, like, bro, what? What is happening right now? And then Bishop goes over and talks to Q, and it is essentially like, if I go down, we all go down. So yeah, there's literally nothing that he can say. There's some more ducking and dodging of Bishop, and Steele eventually does get cornered by Bishop. I think he like catches him at the school or something like that, and they go somewhere. I think that maybe they go to like the arcade or something, and they're like trying to hang out, but like Steele does not have nerves of steel, and is very distraught and is not handling very well being in the proximity of Bishop. And they go out to the alley, like, to talk, whatever. I don't remember why exactly they went out to the alley. Bishop is like, I know that if you got caught up, that you pretty much would snitch on me, so I'm gonna have to kill you, which I forgot about. So earlier, at that first day after the shootings, they all had gotten picked up by the police because they were, I guess, like, someone had seen them in the area, but then also like their best friend died, so they were like, we bring you in for questioning. And we see like all their different personalities again. And this part kind of like reminded me of the like Central Park 5 movie, and how like these are children that are being questioned right now, and it's like, where, like, ain't no parents around, like, it's just cops being cops, having children questioned, like, no type of representation. Like, all of this is just terrible. Like, come on. But obviously nobody said anything. They get let out. I'm sure like their parents probably came and got them or whatever. So Bishop ends up shooting Steele because he's like, yeah, I know you're not gonna be able to hold it down, so I gotta take you out the game. So he shoots Steele, and I believe it was after this scene, it's now trying to figure out, like, okay, who is doing this? Like, something is happening within these friends because just a lot is going on, and people are looking at Q for Raheem's murder because I guess he didn't necessarily do anything to say that, like, oh yes, I'm suspicious, but he also couldn't say anything else to take the blame off of him. And then Bishop helps like double down on that because he's telling Sam Jack, like, hey, you've known us since we were like kids, but it's so crazy how people change up sometimes. Like, Cuban acting real different recently. Like, you should keep an eye on him. And Sam Jack is like, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm gonna keep my eye on both of y'all. And so later, Q comes to the arcade, and Sam Jack is a little taken aback, and he's like, and Q is trying to tell him the truth of, like, hey, this is all Bishop, like, Bishop has lost it. And Sam Jack is like, because I don't know what Sam Jack's character's name is, so he's just Sam Jack. Sam Jack is like, well, Bishop was saying the same thing about you, and he was like, okay, well, can you get him a message to meet me at this place at 11 so we can talk? Q's message does get to Bishop, and they meet at this place or whatever. And then while this is happening, we see that Steele did not die. And so he's like crawling, trying to, get to someone to be able to call for help. And so he gets in the ambulance and he's like, oh, it wasn't, oh no, I remember what it was. So he gets in the ambulance and some people who are in the crowd see Q and they're like, hey, ain't you his best friend? Like, what happened? And so he takes off running. And I think that was when he asked Sam Jack to give Bishop the message. I don't fully remember. Bishop and Q end up meeting. I believe Q was able to get his own gun from somebody. I can't fully remember because I feel like now I'm mixing stuff together in my mind. But I believe Q was able to get his own gun to protect himself against Bishop, because of course Bishop was gonna have it. Q tries to talk to Bishop, but Bishop is too far gone at this point. There's no rationalizing. There's no let's come together as adults and talk this thing out. He's too far gone. So Q takes off running, and Bishop is trying to shoot at him, but he's doing the proper, he didn't go to the Prometheus school of running away from things. He's zigzagging and properly running away, and Bishop is shooting and missing, and Q runs into a building, and this is the part where I was like, wait, this is the scene from the memes. I remember this. Q runs into a building, and he's running through people, whatever, and he gets in an elevator, and he goes all the way to the back of the elevator because he thinks he'll be cool, I'll be safe here. But at the very last second, Bishop is able to get into the elevator as well. And so you know how regularly in an elevator you'll stand facing the doors, so everyone is facing the doors except for Bishop. Bishop is looking Q directly in his eyes, and it's so creepy. Tupac was acting his ass off in this role. I was invested. I was terrified. My nerves were shot, but I was invested. Q was like, oh, so what, you're just gonna shoot me in this elevator full of people? And Bishop is like, yeah, and then goes to shoot him. Q ducks, and missing, everybody's screaming and shit. They're able to get out of the elevator, and they're running across the rooftops again, which brings us back to the beginning of the movie where they were running across the rooftops, and when they jumped, so Q, in the beginning, Q made the jump very easily. I mean, he did have to do a little roll afterwards, but he was fine. Bishop, however, made it a little bit more roughly. But in the beginning, he was able to make it. So back to the end of the movie, they're running on the roofs of the building. And there's another jump, and Q makes the jump, and Bishop doesn't fully make the jump. So he makes it enough to where he's holding on to the side of the building, and Q was trying to pull him up, but essentially this is the weight of a grown man. He's just not strong enough. He ends up falling and dying. My thing is, the way that movies are made nowadays, I was fully if we don't see a dead body, how do we know he's dead? Seeing as there's no Juice 2, I'm sure he's dead. He's not a murder horror villain, technically is, but it's not a horror movie. So I don't think he'll he never died. I don't think that's what's happening. But that's kind of what it gave me, because he just fell off the roof, and Q was like, oh my God. So he turns around, and all the people from earlier are now at the door, because they I get being nosy, but like this dude shot a gun in a crowded elevator and y'all want to follow them up to the roof to see what happens? Why would you do that? Um, but yeah, so he turns around, the door is like crowded with, they see what all happened. Like as he comes in the door, they're like, oh man, you know, that's crazy. Like consoling him or whatnot. And that pretty much is the end. It's like that is the movie of Juice. When it went off, I was just kind of like, wow, that was a thing that happened. Um, I will say that like a part of me kind of wishes I watched it sooner, but I'm glad I watched it when I did because like honestly I probably would have cried because it's kind of a heavy movie and I don't think it's like while it is dramatized, I'm sure that there were and are people who have mental health struggles but are in a society and are surrounded by people who don't fully know how to live and assist people with those mental difficulties. And then it's like, I feel used and abused because everyone keeps messing with me for things that are out of my control. And so I'm going to take my control into my own hands and I'm going to hurt people. That is the movie. That is what happened. I'm sure everyone watching this has probably already seen the movie. But if you have not, I definitely recommend watching it for yourself because my synopsis and review of it, I cut out a lot. Because I was just like, here's the parts that like, here's the movie, the A-line, like, let's keep going through it. But I definitely recommend watching it if you haven't watched it. If you haven't watched it in a long time, watch it again. It's a fun time. Tupac is rest in peace. But yeah, thank you all for coming back and watching this video. I don't know what movie I'm gonna do next, so if you all have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all those good YouTubey things, and I will catch y'all next time. Bye.